Well, good day and welcome to you. It is February the 7th. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome everyone to this channel. Whether you've heard this information before for years or you're coming upon it for the first time, I'm really, really glad you're here. But either case, whether you're someone who has heard this information before or if you're just hearing this video for the first time and you don't know really what to make of this information, the only thing I think you can really do is educate yourself better about it. And then you can see if there's any truth to it, and then you can really decide what you want to do with it. So I have provided links for anyone who cares to look at them to do just that, to educate yourself better about this information. And as always, I like to encourage people to check out the Share International site. I'm not an official spokesperson for Share International, but I guess I'm kind of a spokesperson for that website at least. But I'm more of a spokesperson for the information, but I do think that that website has the most information in one spot that you can get anywhere else. So you don't have to go to a bunch of different websites unless you really want to. But you can do this however you want to do it. And of course, but hopefully I at least encourage you enough to check out that site. So anyway, now in this video, I'm going to do something that I want to do more of, but I don't do very much of at this time, as I'm going to bring somebody else on to talk about their experiences with Maitreya. I talk about my experiences all the time. I talk about, and try to answer some of the questions that come my way, but I very rarely have the opportunity to talk to somebody else about their experiences with Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. And Elisa, I've known for years. I've known her actually since the late 90s. So time is ticking. So it's been well over almost, I think, 25 years since I've known her, a quarter century. Jeez Louise. You don't know me, but I am getting old. Anyway, but Elisa doesn't seem to age at all. I did a Zoom call with her when we recorded this, and I was like, wow, you look the same as you did when I first saw you 25 years ago. But anyway, Elisa's known this information for years. She's had Maitreya experiences for years and been very involved in this work for quite a bit of time. And her recent work is a podcast called Mystic Takeaways. And the link is in the description. I asked her if it was okay if I put that link in there, and I'll be leaving it in there from now on because she brings on a lot of people on her podcast where she talks about different things about this story, but also about their own personal experiences. So you can also get more information about this incredible story from just going to her podcast. So hopefully you'll check that out as well. All right, without further ado, I am going to bring on Elisa. So first of all, how are you today? I'm going to start with the most important question. How are you today, Elisa?
Everything's lovely. It's wonderful. Considering everything that's going on, it's good. I'm doing well. Thank you.
And you live in Europe.
I do.
And so how's the weather in Europe? Is it cold right now or is it kind of warm?
Well, if you ask a German, they'll tell you this is not normal weather. It's been, I think of it as like London weather. It's overcast and very drizzly, and so it's kind of wet and probably in the 40s, something like that. So it's actually much too warm for wintertime. And yet it's not pleasant or comfortable to go outside. we only get sun maybe once a week if we're lucky. So it's that's a little hard for me because I grew up in California. So that takes getting used to.
Now, some years ago, I won't say the number of years, it actually was 97. So what's that? Almost 25 years ago, I met you at the conference with Benjamin Creme out in San Francisco.
Right.
And so I've known you for quite some time. I saw you, I think, pretty much on an annual basis since then. And I never really knew how you got into knowing about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. And then, of course, getting very much involved in transmission meditation as a form of service, but also informing the public of Maitreya and so forth. So when did you first hear about Maitreya? Was it at the same time that you heard about Benjamin Creme, or was it before that, or what exactly?
Well, I was kind of always a seeker as a kid, as a young person.
Mm-hmm.
I read things like Edgar Cayce in my teen years. And so I was always interested in far out kinds of things. And I guess you could say New Age concepts. I didn't grow up with a hardcore religion in my family. So I had a lot of, ways of freedom of thought, really. My parents
Mm-hmm.
gave me a lot of freedom of thought, and they introduced me to interesting things like reincarnation when I was pretty young. But so this interest was always there. But I was introduced to the whole thing in 1987,
Mm-hmm.
around the time I was 21. I had a dream one night, and in the morning when I woke up, I I couldn't remember all the details of the dream, but it was a very powerful dream. It left a very strong impression with me. And when I opened my eyes, actually, I could see visual aspects of the dream in my room. And that had never happened to me before. And these were what I could see were these floating pyramids, and they just looked like pyramids, but they sort of looked like ice cubes, these little things floating in the air. And I had no
Mm-hmm.
idea what it was about. I just knew there was only an impulse in me that I was supposed to find a meditation group. Later, I'd find out that actually these forms actually do relate to the meditation that I ended up doing. So I think, I was kind of called to it in a way. And the next morning, I actually opened up a magazine that was a local magazine for groups like yoga and meditation groups in the area. I grew up in San Jose, California.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I saw this advertisement for transmission meditation. And I knew that that was the one that I was meant to find. I can't really tell you why, but it just was really clear to me. I still remember the phone number. It was a long time ago. And I called this woman up, and she had a group 3 times in a week meeting for 3 hours. And I drove over, it was near Santa Cruz. I drove over the hill and would meet up with them. And I felt at home when I started doing transmission meditation. It felt right to me. I really liked the people. They were very open-minded and intelligent and kind-hearted. And so, yeah, I started doing transmission when I was 21. And then a few weeks in, the woman hosting the group gave me Benjamin Creme's first book to read, which is called The Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom. And it was a very interesting book. And on some level, it also just seems so outrageous to me on so many levels, because I thought I just didn't understand really much about any of that stuff. Kind of this combination of religious concepts, but with New Age concepts put together. And so I told the host, I really didn't know what I thought of the book, because it just seemed so far out to me at that time. And she said to me, well, why don't you go and watch a video of Benjamin Creme giving a lecture? He usually comes twice a year to the US. You could see him in San Francisco in July or November, but this was earlier in the year, in the spring. And she said, why don't you go and watch a video of one of his talks? And so, this is in the day of VHS, right? So I went,
Sure.
I went to somebody's house, and they put this video in for me. And he was a very nice man who also had a transmission group at his home. It was closer to where I lived. And I saw this presentation, and there was a blessing on the video given, that Benjamin Creme used to give a blessing from Maitreya. This energy from Maitreya flows through him to the audience at every one of these lectures that he gave anywhere in the world. And many people have experienced incredible things from that. So I had no idea. I didn't know what I was looking at. He was just holding his hands out and passing them around on the screen. And when they came to me on the screen, I got hit really deeply in my heart. It was so powerful and so profound that it erased any doubts that I had in my mind that there was any question that this wasn't real. So for me, it was like an instantaneous recognition. And I never looked back after that. It was so strong. And so it was very clear Maitreya is absolutely real. And the energy of love is very, very potent coming from him. And so that's basically how I kind of got started. I started my first transmission meditation group my husband and I moved to upstate New York in 1993. And in 1994, we started our first transmission group in Albany, or near Albany, New York. So, and that continued we had up to 12 members, but 6 very strong core members until 2001 when we moved back to California.
Awesome. Well, now I know more about you.
Yeah.
So the reason why I wanted to have you talk to the listeners of Search for Signs, over the years that I've been doing these videos, I've spoken about my own personal experiences. I've invited others to talk a bit about their own personal experiences. And Dick Larson comes to mind because he had such an energetic quality to his presentation about the masters, for sure. I mean, the guy's just full of so much energy, right? But one of the things that he talked about is how to recognize whether or not, maybe possibly, if you've met a master before, right? Or
Right.
Maitreya.
Yes.
And, some of us have had very simple interactions or very seemingly ordinary interactions with Maitreya, but it left them changed, really.
Yes,
I mean, whether it was their outlook on life changed, but it's not a temporary thing. It's a permanent
absolutely.
readjustment of a lot of things, right? So perhaps you could share some of your experiences with Maitreya or some of these other. You never really specified who the masters were, so it might have been another master. We don't know yet. I'll find out as same as everybody else. But I wanted to kind of hear about your experiences, because, and then if you could also just kind of give us a time frame of when these experiences happened, based on when you started doing transmission meditation and getting involved in this work, or was it before then or after that, or during the same time you started to kind of, wake up to this?
I think the thing is that a lot of people working with Share International as volunteers, none of us at that time really thought that the masters were interacting with us, in a general way. So it was really that Benjamin Creme started telling us that you're all having experiences and you should be paying attention and writing them down, because they're important to share, so that people understand this is actually real. So, and also many of those experiences were written up by the people who experienced them and sent into Share International magazine, and Benjamin Creme's master would confirm that this was this master or that master. So, but I mean, so I wasn't really thinking about it. It wasn't on my radar until probably around 1997 or something like that.
Okay.
Or maybe 95. I don't know. But it was actually later that I started thinking about it. But my very first experience actually happened in 1987. And so it was 11 years later or something like that I actually wrote it up. And because I thought about it all those years. So I guess I have to tell that one now. So
please.
Okay. So this is the same time that I came into contact with transmission meditation and Share International. And I was working at the time as a receptionist and sort of a secretary or administrative assistant for a property company called Lincoln Property Company in the Bay Area. And we were overseeing and managing 3 large business buildings, commercial business buildings. And our office was in one of them that was brand new. It was in Campbell. It was called Lincoln Court. And so I was often the only one in the office because the office managers were often running around doing other things. And they gave me a lot of responsibility. I was still very young. I was 21. So anybody coming in, I was their first contact, and I knew pretty much what to do and say to, I could make decisions as well. So one day this entrepreneur came in. He was probably in his late 20s, and he was dressed very casually. And he said to me, "I'm an entrepreneur, and I have a service. I have a business that sells. My business washes people's cars while they're at work in the parking lot." And he didn't have a card. He didn't tell me his name. He just basically was standing at my desk and telling me that he had this business, and he wanted our permission to advertise and sell his his services to our tenants in our building. And so I decided to ask him a few questions because I thought to myself, well, okay, I was very environmentally conscious at that time. And so I said, well, what kind of products do you use for your, cleaning the cars? Do you use environmentally friendly products? And he said, well, yeah, I think so. And I said, well, I think it's really important. And he said, I'll tell you a secret. I'm actually a fundamentalist Christian. And he said, and I don't believe that that God cares if we clean up the environment or not, because I think he'll take care of it, and or the planet's not going to be around anyway, because we're going to have, the apocalypse. And so I don't really see the point. And then I said,
wow.
Yeah, I said to him, well, now wait a minute. And I'm actually a generally shy person. It doesn't sound like it now, but I'm generally a pretty shy person. So especially then. So I wasn't really comfortable, just sort of like letting people know what I thought about those things. But I really came out and I said, look, I've never understood this, that there are people who believe that if the people born into a country that doesn't have their faith are doomed to hell, or I've never understood this, because I've always felt that we are all the voices of God, every one of us, regardless of your religion or whatever. And then I also said, and we are the hands of God. So we have to be the ones to clean up the environment. God is depending on us. And so I kind of got on a soapbox and just let him know what I thought. And at this point, we were standing across from each other. And I was, in front of my desk, and he was standing across from me, and he was just quiet. He was just listening to me rail on, I was just going on and on. and I was kind of surprised that he wasn't pushing back, and he wasn't asking, he wasn't defending himself or anything. He didn't say a thing. And then he had a smile that crept up on his face. And then he took my hand and he kissed it, and he walked out the door. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I must have changed his mind. Like I was like, oh my God, how effective I was, I must have really made him think, and, so it was a powerful experience, because I really thought to myself, wow, I could stand up and, talk about things that matter to me, with strangers. And maybe I actually changed his mind about something. Maybe I made him think about something, but he didn't leave a card. I mean, if he really had been who he said he was, I think he would have come back, and he never came back. But he, and then it was rather odd that somebody you don't even know takes your hand and kisses it. So I had no idea. And of course, it didn't occur to me at all. This was Maitreya, not at all. I was just learning about the masters at this point. But of course, it stuck with me for years and years. And when I was in New York, at a private event, and Benjamin Creme was there, and he was telling us, you're all having experiences, and you all have to be paying attention and writing them down. And that one came to my mind. I thought, oh, wait, what was that then? And so I wrote it up, and I actually gave it to Share International magazine, and Benjamin Creme's master confirmed it was Maitreya. So that was my first experience in 1987. And many of the subsequent ones, like, for example, what I really wanted to talk about was the fact that I had two experiences with homeless men in San Francisco and in Santa Cruz, California. I had a trip planned to go to a wedding in California. We were living in New York at the time, and I was only going to spend 5 days there. So I made a plan to spend 1 day with my best friend in San Francisco and 1 day with my mother in Santa Cruz. And on the plane, I'd been reading Share International magazine and reading all the letters to the editor, many of which had to do with meeting a homeless person who had a very special energy about them and had spoken to someone. And so I was thinking about it quite a lot. And I was wondering, because I was going to be in San Francisco, and San Francisco has a large homeless population, I was curious if I might run into Maitreya there somehow. And that's kind of what happened. So my friend and I and my 2-year-old daughter, we were just leaving a restaurant, and we were walking up one of the hills in the Sunset District of San Francisco. And we were going back to her car, and we passed like a bakery, and there was a man standing near the door, in the doorway of the bakery. And he had a pizza box on his arm, but he was selling street sheets, which are a magazine or a newspaper that's produced for homeless people to sell. So they have something to sell you as opposed to just ask for money. And my problem was at the time, and I still kind of like this, I don't carry a lot of money on me. I don't usually have almost any cash on me. So I think it was a message. I actually think that that's one of the reasons it happened, because I wasn't prepared. But my friend just kept walking. She had my daughter in her arms and she just kept walking up the hill. But I could not walk past this man without, I felt like my heart was falling out of my chest. I had so much compassion looking at this man, because he was well dressed for a homeless man, and he was standing there very dignified, but his eyes were turned down, and he had a dog on a leash. And even though he was relatively well dressed, like he was wearing a button down shirt and he wasn't dirty, but I knew he was homeless, and he was selling street sheets. So that gave it away. And so I just had to stop and talk to him. And I said, I'm really sorry, I don't have any cash. I see you're selling street sheets and I would buy one, but I'm so sorry, I actually don't have any money on me. And he kept his gaze downward, because I kept kind of wanting to look at his eyes. A lot of people have said that there's something special in the eyes that you see right away. And I was curious, could it be that this is Maitreya? Because I was feeling such this powerful, energetic experience of compassion. And he just kept looking down, and he said, he stuck his arm out to shake my hand. And he said, "My name is Jeffrey. It's nice of you to stop and talk to me." And Jeffrey is a name that's very familiar to me, because I had a cousin who died early of a drug overdose. He had a drug problem his whole life. And I didn't know him very well. He was living on another coast from me, but I always felt a little bit of judgment towards him because of his lifestyle choice. And I didn't have a lot of compassion for him. So it was interesting that he chose this name, Jeffrey. So it struck me right away. And then I said, "Yeah, is that your dog?" And he said, "Yes, this is my dog, Midnight." And then he said, "I just want to buy her some dog food." And I'm like, now I'm really feeling bad. So then I just said, well, my friend was way up the hill, and I just said, "I'm so sorry, but I think I have to go now." And then he turned, and his whole demeanor changed. And he said, "Well, I hope I see you again, Elisa." And then he said something to me that nobody else knew. My husband and I used to have this conversation, because he was an entrepreneur, and we always imagined the first company that he was going to sell, IPO, that we were the first million that was going to come in. You're very optimistic.
Sure.
We were going to give 10,000 to Share International. And we had this whole big, discussion just between us about this, sort of when we were just imagining what we would do. Right. And so this man said to me, "I hope I see you again, Elisa. And I hope you make $1 million so you can give 10,000 of it to me."
Oh my gosh.
And I just jumped out of my skin. I was just like, and I ran up the hill to my friend and I said, "I think that was Maitreya." And she said she knew about it. I had told her about it all. And she said, "Let's go see if he's still there." And we got in the car and we drove down the hill, and he was running as if he was being chased. It was like a little joke, a funny thing. So that was an experience I had in San Francisco in 1997, I think. 1997? I think it was 1997 in the fall. And the next day, I had another experience with Maitreya. Actually, that was also confirmed by Benjamin Creme in Share International magazine. These letters are all featured in Share in different issues. But the next day I was in Santa Cruz with my mother. And again, I had the same situation. I didn't have any money in my pockets, and I had some change. I had a little bit of change, and my mother went to go and feed the parking meter. And I told her I'd meet her at the end of the street. There's this area called the Pacific Garden Mall in Santa Cruz. And there's a lot of homeless people there, especially young people. And it's, again, one of these things where you kind of think, are they homeless by choice? Are they homeless wannabes? Are they actually, what's going on here? And I always was a little bit less compassionate than I could have been. And because they can be very aggressive, sometimes. So anyway, I just had these coins in my pocket, and I was afraid to give them to anyone, because I thought, they're not going to think that's enough. They're going to think that's just petty. Why would you give me a quarter, whatever. So anyway, I was thinking about this, and I had to cross the street to go to this place that I told my mother I would meet her. It was a shop, and there was this indigent farm worker, looked like he was from Mexico or some South American, Central American country, and he was really like, he looked like he was filthy. He was just black, like his feet were black, and he was a Latin American, but he had like very dirty clothes and everything. I mean, like it almost looked like a parody of a homeless person in a way. And he was tearing up books, sitting on a blanket, and he was singing at the top of his lungs. And he had a little sign on the front of his blanket that said, "I need 37 cents." And that was kind of a giveaway, right? So I don't know. I didn't count how many coins I had in my pocket, but it could have been 37 cents. And my mother met me at this place, and I told her, I think that's Maitreya outside on the blanket. And she and I went out. She said, let's go out and throw all our coins on the blanket. And so I did this, and he got so excited, and he said, God bless you. That's what I love about America. It was very funny. So that was another Maitreya experience. And, in both cases, there's a feeling that you get if you know what you're looking for. The masters are extremely oriented to average humanity, to all of us. We're one family. And they often appear as homeless men or homeless women because they want to shine a light on this, because this inequality that we allow to persist in our countries and our environments is really a blight, because it doesn't recognize that all of us have the same needs, and there's no reason for this. That Maitreya is always saying, take your brother's need as the measure for your action, and save the world or solve the problems of the world. And I think, I've come a long way in terms of understanding and respecting and having more compassion for people, especially now when you see how easily people fall through the cracks in many places of the world today. Economic system doesn't serve everyone. And as a result, any one of us, it's could fall through those cracks easily. And whether it's a medical problem or healthcare issues or drug issues, I mean, the despair that we all have, the societies we're living in today is so unequal. And I think a lot of people turn to drugs and alcohol because of that. So anyway, it's a big problem, and I'm really much more conscious of it now, and I respect and have compassion for people. So that was a helpful thing to have those experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and I would love for you to come on back on at some point and talk about this information in a different way, maybe even some of your thoughts on whether it be transmission meditation or social injustice or whatever inspires you.
Yeah, great.
That would be great. Yeah, I'd love for you to. Awesome. And if you don't mind, I will include your Mystic Takeaway link in the bottom of.
Oh, great.
These. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. I
absolutely. Because you talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you talk about this information a lot more. You're a lot more fluid and calm. You sound like you should be on NPR or
lovely.
or a podcast on Spotify or something. You're very, very polished in the way that you speak on these things. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, Gary. That's very sweet of you. No, actually, my podcast is on Spotify. It's on all the platforms.
Yeah, there you go. See, I knew it. I didn't know that. Well, awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time and sharing your experiences, Elisa. It was really nice to get to know you in terms of this, more about how you got into this information and everything. So,
it's a pleasure, really. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, cool. So that was perfect. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Awesome. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.